It's like pepperoni pizza or sausage, you know? What do you like better? I like vanilla and chocolate.
Howie Roseman, Wheeler and Dealer, Alex Gelhar, Handsome Hank, and me, Dave Dameshek, in Studio 66. We have much to get to today. Very busy in the world of football and beyond. Let's start with this important issue, though. Alex Gelhar, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Handsome?
I said this yesterday. There's a big disparity of vanilla. Like good vanilla can be great. Average vanilla can be vanilla. So I would take good vanilla over chocolate. Chocolate is chocolate.
No, that is incorrect. Chocolate also has a huge range.
It has a
to
range. You're right. It has a range, but not as
And
wide.
it's just
Not
better.
as wide as vanilla.
No, a delicious dark chocolate,
Yeah.
a nice high end, a flourless chocolate cake over.
Wait. We're talking about ice cream here, Dave. You can't take chocolate off in a different direction here.
I see.
Cake.
I got you. No, you know what? If we're sticking to ice cream, you're right, I think. I don't know that I've ever had a sublime chocolate ice cream. Right.
But
I
you
do
can
think,
have a great vanilla one.
all right, next up, although I do think that Howie Roseman goes a little too far with his analogy or metaphor or whatever this counts as. Who likes chocolate and vanilla equally? That's not Howie Roseman implies Goff, Wentz, chocolate, vanilla, whichever, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Inaccurate. No, what human being has the exact same feelings towards chocolate and vanilla ice cream?
Let's just be glad he didn't really muddle the waters and say he loves Neapolitan and get strawberry in the mix then.
That's my argument. If chocolate and vanilla were equally loved, why isn't Neapolitan still being served everywhere you go? You don't see it.
It's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It has. Or maybe we can indict strawberry, the red-headed or the pink-headed stepchild. Next up, pepperoni or sausage, Handsome Hank.
I go pepperoni on that one.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I'm going to go chalk and say pepperoni as well.
Well, I have to give the buzzer to both of you on that one. Trick question, as I've said many times before, and as you know from the Shek Awards, the best pizza topping is, of course, meatball. Yeah. If it's a proper meatball. If it's a meatball that then they've sliced and put on top of the pizza, that's the winning move there. Yeah. All right, we've handled those important issues. Now let's get to the world of football. Start the show. Yes, hi and hello, football fans. It's time for the DDFP. We have much to get to. The mock draft. Howie Roseman encourages us to play Inspector Clouseau, so we shall do that. Game of Thrones starts this weekend. We want to get a little preview. Get up to speed. Alex Gelhar, not just a fantasy guru, but also knowledgeable. He's read all the books even. I mean, who reads books anymore?
Guru in fantasy literature, too, you might say.
Well done. Well done. And we have to come close. I don't think we're going to complete it, but the all-time draft of 2016 rolls on to the picks 26 through 30. Juicy stuff upcoming there. But first, let's talk about it. Prince, Handsome Hank, you're a music aficionado. Prince, what's your reaction to it?
I like Prince. I was always a fan of Prince. I saw Prince play at Wembley Stadium once.
Did you really? Wow, how cool!
Somewhere back there, that was cool. He played the Super Bowl halftime show, and we just pulled up a clip on NFL.com that we had from a show that aired earlier in this year around Super Bowl 50 that was kind of behind the scenes of his Super Bowl performance. And if you remember, it was Super Bowl 41 in Miami, where it rained a ton on the day of the game and during. And they have this anecdote. Apparently, the person who's producing the show calls Prince and says, "Hey, Prince, hope it's okay. It's raining out here," like there was anything anyone could do about it. And Prince's response was, "Can you make it rain harder?"
Nice.
That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty cool. So
Gelhar?
That's one of my probably top three Super Bowl halftime performances.
I am not. I was never a Prince diehard guy,
Right.
but I appreciated it. It's sort of like I might a painting, even if I'm not. The thing with Prince is, according to all people who make music, you will never find anybody who doesn't rank him in the top 2 or 3 greatest musicians, greatest artists of the last 40 or 50 years, legitimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say my Prince anecdote was when I was younger, I started playing guitar, and I started because I heard like Eddie Van Halen and some of those other guys, and then as I was learning more, people were mentioning Prince in the same breath as one of these guitar virtuosos, and I was like, really, Prince? Like Little Red Corvette? But then you dive into the catalog, the guy can shred. He was, as you said, he played 27 different instruments on one of his albums. He was just a musical genius,
Yeah,
and,
right.
and we lost a great one today.
Yeah, and, I hear a lot of people, this leads people, and I don't think it's cavalier about the man's overall existence, but, of course, if you're a music maker, people then start to cite, did you see him? Like Handsome just did there. He's seen him, so you saw him in Wembley and you saw him at the Super Bowl.
I wasn't at the Super Bowl. I saw him on television at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it summons those. I hear a lot of people immediately talking about, I meant to go and see him a few weeks ago. I had a chance and I missed it. And have you missed a show like that? Have you seen Prince Gelhar?
Prince was one of the ones I've missed. So I've been trying actually the last couple of years to get out and see more concerts, funny enough. And I got to see the Eagles play live at the Forum here in Los Angeles
That's cool.
only a handful of months before Glenn Fry passed away this year as well. So
boy, 2016
Feels like,
is the
2016
all-time.
It's been a rough year.
Been hungry for celebrities, hasn't it?
But it's mid-April. Just
Right. The Reaper just came and was like,
for
I'm taking
music.
him, and him.
Merle
Right.
Haggard,
Right.
Fife Dog,
Yep.
David Bowie.
Glenn Fry.
Glenn Fry. Was Glenn Fry this year, or was it
I
right
thought
at
he
the
was this
end
year.
of? It probably was. You're right.
No, Glenn Fry, I
Was
believe,
was
is
early this year,
2016. Yeah, it's an
Been a bad
awful
one.
run we're on, and I think that I fear I'm never going to see Paul McCartney. Not that I need to see Paul McCartney play his solo hits, but I was in New Orleans at another Super Bowl, and it was the Rams and Patriots Super Bowl, so 15 years or so ago, and
That was you too, right?
Yeah, it was you
Was
two.
U2.
That's exactly right.
It was after 9/11, and they had a pretty emotional halftime show. One of the great.
Exactly right. And the night of the Super Bowl, so the Super Bowl had wrapped up a couple hours before, and me and some chums were sitting in one of the two hotel bars. This one was in the belly, in the bowels of the hotel. It was in I guess the underneath the ground floor, subterranean. Okay. And we were in there, and it was kind of. I remember Marv Levy was in there. That was the thing that stood out to me about that. The next morning, I learned that directly above us in the other bar, Paul McCartney got into that bar. There was a grand piano, and he impromptu sat down and played for 45 minutes. Can you imagine?
Jeez.
That's cool.
Can you imagine being in a hotel and Paul McCartney comes in and starts playing Beatles hits for you? No, I was downstairs with Marv Levy. Yes, black tie behind the glass.
Well, yeah, just going back to Prince, I wasn't the most prolific Prince listener, but the guy's style and aura was impeccable, and of course he gave, he's part of the reason for one of the most memorable skits in comedy history with the Dave Chappelle.
Yep.
Game Blouses skit, and I'm sure a generation of people and kids probably just remember him just for that. And I mean, the guy, like I said, his aura was impeccable.
Which is steeped in actual history. Prince was a great high school basketball player despite only being 5'2".
Is that true?
Yep, he was like their 6th or 7th man. They said, he would have been a starter had it not been for that being like a historically great class in that high school. But he was a tremendous athlete and was like a great basketball player in high school as well.
Do you think when you die, people will be talking about you as a tremendous athlete who was the 6th or 7th player? Because you do always talk about that, or you
Good free throw shooter.
mention it.
I know. I feel a little ghoulish having that conversation today by how I'll be remembered, but I think the correct answer is that no one will care at all. Wow, did you hear about that, huh? Whew, that's too bad.
Him.
That's too bad. Well, is somebody going to take over his show? Yeah. The Handsome Hank football program. Welcome, all. I once the one thing I did see with Prince, and I can confirm the 5'2" status. My David Feeney, of course, from Daves of Thunder, and I went out one night. The one time I've ever gone clubbing in my life. We went to. Can't even think of the name of the joint. It's on Sunset Boulevard, the Velvet Rope. It's the original place. It's outside, swimming pool. It was a very hip club.
The Standard, or is it no?
No, it was before all that. It was the first place that I heard like, oh yeah, people go. And we went to. I can't think of the name of it. I wonder if it's even still around. But it's the one and only time I've ever done the Velvet Rope thing and all that. And Feeney and I went in there, and Prince was off in a corner. It was mostly outside, but he was in a cabana, and it was completely empty, and yet they had him velvet roped in there, and no human being was anywhere close to Prince. He was sitting in a huge booth by himself with 3 or 4 security guards standing near the velvet ropes. No one near Prince, the only human being that you could see in there. And David Feeney and I stood there and had a drink and watched Prince sit there.
I will say, I just want to chime in
exciting.
on they're showing some of the footage from that clip that Henry was talking about. I watched it earlier today, and it is tremendous. His halftime performance was so good at that Super Bowl.
It really was really good.
Yeah, so, and it's one of those things to me as I look through social media today. I didn't realize how significant Prince was to the general public. He's one of those guys that, I mean, Michael Jackson, I might have anticipated the devastation. I'm kind of surprised that he had this big an impact on so many people, Prince, or that his music meant so much to him. But another sad one in the world of music here in 2016. Let's move on now. And by the way, the Dave Dameshek football program presented by McDonald's, and more from McDonald's coming up with the all-time draft of 2016 in just a bit. Right now, let's get back to the big day that was Wednesday in April, once again proving amidst NHL playoffs and NBA playoffs and baseball season now in full swing, suddenly the NFL is at the top of the sports page. Howie Roseman swinging a big deal with the Cleveland Browns, and here's a little bit more from him on that, who he's going to take with that second pick.
It's like Inspector Clouseau. You're going to have to connect the dots there, Les.
You know, this intrigues me. So let's jump into it here. And I think let's take the bait and let's play a three-headed Inspector Clouseau here and see if we can divine. Everybody's doing their mock drafts. And so let's do a modified mock draft. Let's at least get through 8 picks here if we can, fellas. And try and suss out what Howie Roseman plans on doing. Now, we did hear in advance of this deal that this was in the works for a couple or a few days. Daniel Jeremiah, of course, a.k.a. Move the Sticks. You watch him on Path to the Draft, buzzing about the possibility of this happening. And now, so it has. The thing that is curious to me, and we talked about it earlier in the week, Handsome Hank, is now what are the Eagles planning to do with that second pick? Because we couldn't really divine what the Rams were trying to do. The Rams say they're uncertain, although 97% sure. Are we to assume that the Eagles somehow, through back channels, do know what the Rams are planning on doing at number 1? Would they make a deal up to number 2? And are we to believe Howie Roseman is really like, well, whichever guy falls to us?
I mean, well, first of all, Inspector Clouseau was not very competent. So I don't know what we're trying to do here, but if we want to really dig in, I think it's intriguing, the idea that maybe they're not after a quarterback at all. They really like Ezekiel Elliott. Remember, they've already traded up once in the first round.
I floated that very idea, sure.
And maybe they believe they have to get ahead of the Cowboys, for example, to do that. I think that's fanciful. Probably it's fun to speculate about, but I think they are. Quarterback. It seemed pretty obvious from his press conference yesterday, and at this time of year, who knows? People are lying all the time. But let's assume he's going to pick a quarterback. The tea leaves are that Goff is going number 1 to the Rams, and I think our intrepid reporter Mike Silver, who's pretty well connected with the Rams and with the Browns, who used to hold that number 2 pick, kind of pointed us all in that direction about a week ago now. So let's assume that the Rams are going Goff. I think the logical conclusion is that they won't. And they're going to get.
But then Adam Schefter muddies the waters even more for me by saying Paxton Lynch is one of the great beneficiaries of this deal, and what exactly that means, I'm not sure. But is that an indication that the Eagles were considering Paxton Lynch there?
Well, I think that means that his stock, he could climb up to 8 now with the Browns trading back, or somebody else is going to have to trade up to get him. So by the Eagles leapfrogging up, for sure taking a quarterback at 2, because you don't give up that kind of draft capital that they did unless you're taking a quarterback and unless you know who you're going to get. So I think through back channel deals, Snead and Roseman have bumped fists and been like, all right, I'm going to take Goff, you're going to take Wentz, good to go. So I don't think they jumped that highly, but I think the reason Lynch, his stock has risen is because now, much like we saw in, 2011, where the Vikings traded up and the Titans traded up, is that the run on quarterbacks is starting so early. If anybody wants Lynch, there are teams like the 49ers that could take him at 7,
Jets.
the Browns, the Jets, all these other teams that are sitting in the middle rounds now could have their phones ringing a lot on draft day for people trying to trade up and get Lynch.
All right,
I think the big
go ahead.
winners are probably the Chargers, who, Laramie Tunsil. I think everyone has agreed. I get it's not as exciting as the quarterbacks, but there was a reason that every single mock for several months had Laramie Tunsil at the top of the draft, is because he's the best player in this draft, or at least at this point, that's the way he's considered.
That's how I
think
feel.
The Chargers, Phil Rivers must be feeling like, he's age whatever, he's got 15 children, but he can probably going to play another couple years because he's going to get that protection on his backside that he hasn't had for the last few years.
It is amazing that the 4 best players in the draft, the earliest any of them's going to go is at number 3.
Number 3, exactly.
It's fascinating in that
and
regard.
Probably more. I haven't seen anyone who has Wentz.
And by the way,
as 5.
regarding high-end talent being available, what do we think before we jump into our little mock here on Josh Norman? Where does he land, Alex Gelhar?
He's an interesting one because the whole reason he's not in Carolina anymore is because he wanted too much money. So when you're looking at potential fits, you have to look at teams that are even going to have the cap space. And there's a few. Jacksonville has the space to get him. They just refurbished that defense. That might be kind of fun. The Giants could go out and get him, which would be dangerous for that division.
Well, that's the dream, right?
That's the
if
dream,
you enjoy melodrama, his
Odell and
confrontation with Odell Beckham,
absolutely.
for he and his baseball bat to walk into the Giants locker room like, "Hey, fellas, remember me?" would be great fun.
I think they would bury the hatchet, being as great of players as they are and having aspirations of winning a title. But the 49ers too. Apparently, Josh wouldn't mind coming and playing in California. Yep. They've got a lot of cap space and need some help on that defense.
I could see Jerry opening the checkbook and trying to bring him to Dallas. I think Jacksonville makes sense. Look, this is a guy who grew up in Carolina, went to Coastal Carolina, played for the Panthers. If he wants to stay home, Jacksonville's pretty much about as close as he's going to get right now with the teams that are probably able to pay for him.
I always get caught up in the literal dollar figures, and I'm terrible at math to begin with. So when people start doing the thing, you see the Patriots do it quite a bit, which is to suddenly find this money. And it's how do they do it? How do they continue to restructure and negotiate so that they can slip a guy in there with at that dollar figure? But it would seem in literal financial terms, there are only so many teams that can throw the kind of loot that Josh Norman's looking for. I do say caveat emptor, though. When teams do this, that should be a red flag, I think. I think Gettleman's willingness to part ways with Josh Norman, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does go back to the Panthers. Then that's going to be predicated on whether or not Josh Norman has any better options. I think he certainly now is going to be motivated. A guy who has a chip on his shoulder now, it's going to be an entire bag of chips on his shoulder. To try and show them up, but I do think people should be wary of that. It's Bucky Brooks, Ike Taylor, Maurice Jones-Drew. These guys all point to the fact that Josh Norman, I guess you could make that. People were saying that same thing about Richard Sherman a year or two ago, but he might be a system guy. He might not be a guy you just throw out on an island. There's no evidence to suggest that that's what you can do with Josh Norman.
It's funny you make that link with Sherman. One of our producers here who worked with Steve Smith when he was on NFL Network earlier in the year said that he was asking Steve Smith about Josh Norman, who, remember, has been around for a while in the league and just didn't really show up.
He's 28.
He's 28 years old, exactly. And he was asking him, where did Josh Norman come from? And he said that Josh Norman is a very, very smart guy who has worked out and saw Richard Sherman was able to parlay kind of being a loudmouth and everything else into a bigger contract and recognition around the NFL, especially going into this contract year. And basically, he said, Steve Smith, in his inimitable way, said that Josh Norman's like the dog that you hear yapping behind a door, and you're like, oh, I'm a bit scared to go in there, and then you open the door, and it's actually a Chihuahua. And he's like, Josh Norman isn't that guy. He is not the brash, bold, trash-talking guy that he seems to be when he's on the field. And kind of, we would have noticed that before last season, right, if that was the case. It's just that he's taken on this personality, and he's going to translate it into a massive contract.
Well, now I hope the Ravens play whoever Josh Norman suits up for in 2016. Now I have that to root for as well. Yeah, we'll see where Josh Norman lands. Although it will be interesting. I guess there's Marcus Allen was allowed to walk out the door for nothing and then tormented the Raiders for years to come. But I think most of the time when you see a GM behave in this sort of glib manner about it, yeah, we're all right without him. The rest of the league should pay attention to that. But yeah, to your point, Handsome, I did not think. Well, I talked to him a month ago, Josh Norman, who was in here. Yeah, he was a pleasant guy. He had
smart guy,
no swagger to him.
Right.
I did, though, have him try to negotiate with a stuffed Carolina Panther doll, not knowing that he wouldn't ultimately resolve his issues with Gettleman and company. Go back and
Maybe
look
have
for that
more
one.
luck with the stuffed doll.
All right, let's get to it then. At number 1, we're going to lock in Goff now. That's a done deal. I think that we can assume that that's right, although were I the Rams, I would still go Wentz, but this is what they're going to do. It seems clear. And as far as that goes, Handsome, do you suppose that our colleagues, or one or maybe both, do you suppose Mike Silver and Daniel Jeremiah are somehow informing each other, informing these teams of this? Do you think that Mike Silver's knowledge is enough for the Eagles to say, well, Mike Silver must know? Because could Howie Roseman be sitting in Philadelphia and saying, well, that Mike Silver, he's been covering the NFL for a long time, and he's tied in with the Rams, and he's been in their war room the last couple of years, and he knows Hugh Jackson. I think this is enough for me to assume if he's reporting it, it must be true.
I mean, I'm sure that happens to some extent, but I think the easier way for it to happen is for Harry Roseman to pick up the phone and find out.
Right.
I mean, I think if the Rams do know who they're picking now, and let's assume that they're most of the way there, then I don't think it. There's between GMs, I think that phone call gets.
You think
made.
Professional courtesy? You think Les Snead's like, all right, just don't tell anybody. But
Yeah, I think.
we're going
I
Goff
think
here.
to some extent that
Yeah,
probably
or he's
happens.
got a staffer. He's like,
Yeah.
your sister's second cousin. It works on the Rams. Like, call them and find out who they're going to take.
All right, so at number 2, Alex Gelhar. Who are the Philadelphia Eagles going to take?
They're going to take Carson Wentz. You don't trade up that high to not take a quarterback, and they're in a good situation right now to let a guy that needs a little time to develop, coming out of a smaller school. He's got all the tools, but he needs to grow a little bit. Let him sit on the bench behind Bradford and Chase Daniels for a year. We've seen it work with a lot of guys in the past, like Phillip Rivers, Carson Palmer, and that guy in Green Bay is doing all right after sitting on the bench for a couple of years.
I know there are some examples of it, but really they moved heaven and earth to get a guy that they're in 2016 not going to start. Keep in mind, this is free agency. This is the age of free agency. As I always point out, I know that teams tend to, the one player that they do lock in for the entirety of his career is the quarterback. If they think he's the franchise quarterback, they throw money at him to keep him in the organization, but still, so you're going to basically redshirt him in his rookie season. Now you have 3 years left to evaluate the guy.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Because if he works out then too, it's all justified. And the core of their roster is young and under contract now. Guys like Jordan Matthews, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz. Their line is pretty young and under contract. Their defense as well. They're not in a rush. It's a long-term move. And who's to say that if Wentz sits for the first couple games, maybe Sam Bradford gets injured. We know he's
Maybe.
not the
Could
pinnacle
happen.
of health.
I don't know.
Then he can step in like Blake Bortles did. The Jags wanted to sit Blake Bortles his entire first year, but Chad Henne was so bad that they had to force Bortles in. And we actually saw Bortles regress as a player in his first year in the NFL.
No jive. The guy I feel bad for is Chase Daniel. I feel bad for him. Because he sold a bad bill of goods. Doug Peterson, his pal, like, yeah, come with me. You're going to be our backup. Now he's a third stringer.
He's getting millions of dollars to put on a jersey.
I guess that's nice. Yeah, that's a good thing. I would be. What do you do? Hey, come on, Coach Pete. You get me to move all the way out here, and now I'm a third string bum.
If you want to restructure my contract with the DDFP to pay me millions of dollars not to appear on the show, I'm willing to do it.
But you do that because it's a passion.
It is a passion.
Hey, here's my passion. Reenactments, or not reenactments, but hypotheticals. Right now, Handsome Hank, you are Doug Peterson.
Right.
Alex Gelhar, you are now
Chase?
Sam Bradford, and you have to break the news, Handsome, that, hey, this long-term thing probably ain't going to work out for you in Philly here.
Hey, Sam, come on in.
What's up, Coach?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good to see you.
I'm excited for this season.
I
Can't
know
wait.
it's going to be a great one. We're really excited about it as well, but probably for a different reason to you.
Oh, yeah?
Well, we just made a trade.
Oh.
We were thinking, like, my first reaction was, hey, let's trade up for someone who can really protect Sam.
Okay, I like
But
that.
then we thought, actually, no, let's get someone who can replace Sam.
Oh.
So we have got, we're going to trade up. We think, well, we don't really care who we get because either one of these guys is probably going to be better than you. So Wentz, Goff, Chocolate, Pepperoni, doesn't really matter to me.
His
You're going to
bedside
replace
manner.
me with pepperoni.
Right. So
All right.
we are going to be replacing you. But the good news is we want you to stick around and mentor this guy.
The good news is I'm going to take my $22 million and run then after a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, but we'll help you run as
Good,
well.
okay.
We're gonna be literally actively pushing you while you're running.
All right,
boy,
sounds
oh
good.
boy, that was your bedside manner is terrible, Coach. You're the lead guy now. You gotta
Right.
know how to handle your players a little bit better.
Sorry.
Their coach. All right, at number 3, are we gonna say Tunsil?
Tunsil, straight. They're sprinting up with.
I think they should go Ramsey. They need help in the back end, and they have a lot of money already invested at the tackle positions. Or they trade back, let somebody else come up again.
Well, that's a possibility, and that could still happen anytime now.
But the Chargers have a nice secondary, so that
They've spent a lot of first-round picks recently, or early picks recently, on the secondary.
But
I think
Eric Weddle's no longer there, and like Jason Verrett was very good. They signed Casey Hayward from the Packers, but Jalen Ramsey's like that chess piece that you can just move all over the field. They can get him in, come in and have him play safety. They can have him play cornerback. It's a versatile piece on that defense. But I wouldn't begrudge them for going Tunsil.
yeah, I think although we also are hearing buzz that the Chargers are trying to trade down themselves.
I think that's the smartest thing, because I think anyone who's coming up probably isn't going to be taking They have a good opportunity to. If Tunsil's the best tackle, there are other tackles. There's Ronnie Stanley, there's Jack Conklin. There are guys who are down there who are probably not a lot worse. If his tackle is what they want, and then to Alex's point, otherwise they move down a few spots and just go for the best player around.
I, by the way, believe, and we've talked about it a lot over the last 6 months or so, that I'm with Gettleman at this point. You see the teams that are getting to the Super Bowls the last 5 years. Read the tea leaves. Look at the recent history. The teams that are sound on both sides of the line of scrimmage. It's not fun, but the teams that have the depth there are the ones that seem to keep getting to the Super Bowls there. So operate with that as your guiding principle. I think Laramie Tunsil is going to be the Chargers pick. Cowboys at 4, all of a sudden now they have no one to rush the passer with now 2 guys going down from suspensions to 4s. I feel like you can't take best player available if you're Jerry. You got to go need here, and probably Joey Bosa.
I think that's what it points to. I think you're exactly right.
We're
there are better
still
players.
letting Ramsey fall? They could use help in the secondary. J.J. Wilcox gets burned for a living back there.
But it doesn't matter. He's going to continue to get burnt for a living if they can't get any pass rush. There is no one who can get pressure on the quarterback.
A lot of scouts that we talk to in here say that Joey Bosa is going to be revealed in the NFL to be just another guy. He's
like his dad.
Although he is going to have the benefit, presumably, that when Randy Gregory gets back, then then he can be the secondary threat there. At number, but although it's a shame to watch Zeke Elliott go to go by the boards, because behind that offensive line, I've been saying that for 3 months now, Jerry's got to be salivating at the possibility of having that weapon in the backfield. But I think out of need, he kind of has to go against it. I still won't be surprised, though. That's pretty juicy to drop Zeke Elliott in the backfield, and just for 2016 in win now mode, just let's shoot it out with the rest of the league here. Let's play everybody 40-38 and see what happens here.
Why not?
That's what the Cowboys would do with Romo, Dez, and a high-end
Romo's
running
36 coming off 2 collarbones.
Got it.
Window is closing.
Right.
That's exactly right. At number 5, who's number 5, Hanson?
Jacksonville.
The
Jacksonville. All
Jacks.
right. What do you think?
Miles Jacksonville.
You think that this is all smokescreen? Miles Jack says that it's all a smokescreen. The knee reports are negative.
Well, he definitely injured his knee last year. That's not a lie. But
No.
to what extent it's still injured, I think that's the smokescreen.
I also think in the modified 20 or in the 21st century, expectations need to be modified. Guys aren't going to probably play 15 years. A lot of guys aren't going to play 15 years anymore anyway. Do you gamble and take a guy who you might get a lot of bang out of, but for only 6 or so years?
I think it's possible, yeah.
Ramsey continues to slide.
I'm impressed that he continues to slide, but I guess maybe the Ravens will scoop him up
Well,
at 7.
I think that's where it stops. I think the Ravens at 7 take Jalen Ramsey and are probably thrilled that he fell to them.
They race up with that card when they see Jalen Ramsey fall to 7.
Remember Ed Reed? We just got that. That's our sort of replacement for him.
All right, and that brings us to number 8. Let's round it out here, fellas. Who are the Cleveland Browns going to use that pick on?
Wait, are we just jumping the 49ers?
Oh, I'm sorry. We
49ers,
jumped the
yeah.
49ers. I apologize. Yes,
Oh, that's okay.
I apologize, 49ers. What are the Niners going to do?
That's a great question.
Yep.
Could they go Paxton Lynch?
Potentially.
I just think it's too early for Paxton Lynch.
Is that a Chip Kelly kind of guy?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
When they've been good, they've had a good offensive line, which clearly hasn't been the case recently, and they lost more pieces from that this offseason. Maybe Ronnie
Stanley
is the
there.
guy there.
I can see that.
Talk about what a team was predicated on in recent history. The Niners were built strong on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Maybe they try to get back to that. But again, Ronnie Stanley is
DeForest Buckner. Maybe they go. Last year they
some
picked an
outside,
Oregon defensive end in Eric Armstead. Maybe they get that guy this time.
All right, so now let's get to number 8. What do you think the Browns do here, Handsome? They've got needs all over the field. And this is the sound move. Apparently, Hugh Jackson and company were listening to Dameshek. They're not going to a Super Bowl no matter what. So the idea of them trying to draft a QB as the missing piece would have been ridiculous anyway.
You know what makes RG3 possibly better is getting Ezekiel Elliott here.
I agree.
Getting a running back and saying, all right, you just have to hand off to this guy. We're not putting it all on your shoulders or whoever else's shoulders. We might draft somewhere later a Connor Cook or that kind of guy. So I could see them, maybe taking Elliott there.
Yeah,
and that's it for Isaiah Crowell.
Isaiah Crowell's not the answer. Duke Johnson's a great
Johnson
role player,
is-
though.
yeah,
He
could
caught
be.
like 60 passes last year, so you get a nice backfield of him as the lightning
Yep.
and Ezekiel Elliott as thunder and kind of lightning himself. That's fun.
I don't see it. I don't understand what people are getting at. They have the thunder in Isaiah Crowell. I disagree with you that he isn't the answer there in first and second down. And I think that Duke Johnson is maybe an every down back, or at the very least, he is your third down back. You just went high on him a year ago to get Zeke
Took him
Elliott.
in the third round. That's not high.
All right, you're right. I do think, and I will stand by this, I think Cardell Jones is a possibility for them at the top of 3. I think that would
third
be,
round?
Yeah, I think that would be a good place to grab him. Hugh Jackson probably could do some stuff with that kid, or maybe they go Christian Hackenberg.
Well,
at
if
the
not
top
Elliott,
2.
who do you have them taking in the first round then?
Do we have anybody? None of our big guys slipped down to there. Not like Jalen Ramsey is off the board now. Paxton Lynch seems like a possibility there. Adam Schefter.
What about getting RG3 somebody to throw to? Taking Josh Doxson or Corey Coleman or Laquan Treadwell.
Possibly.
That's
Or
probably
moving down again.
If they
Or
move down
moving
again,
down
wide
again.
that seems
receiver
like
would make more sense to me.
overvaluing those guys.
I mean, the Sashi Brown front office is probably saying, look, let's collect as many draft picks we want. So if there is a team that's interested in Paxton Lynch, yeah, we'll trade down with you. Let's collect as many picks as we can.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on now. Game of Thrones starts on Sunday. We are a full-service program here. By the way, speaking of programs, Alex Gelhar, Marcus Grant, and others, James Coe doing dynamite work on the NFL Fantasy Live podcast. Yes, they
Kind
are.
of you to say, Dave.
They
Thank
keep
you.
going 12 months a year, and in front of the draft and after. They're hipping you to what you need to know for your fantasy team, especially important for those dynasty leagues.
Absolutely.
Keeping everything else. Make sure you tune into that one. We try to service not just the game of football here, but the game called life. And so let's talk about Game of Thrones. Gelhar, you've read all the books, eh?
I have. I'm eagerly awaiting the 6th one, but I have no idea when it's going to get here.
There's no such thing as a 6th one, right?
No, he's working on it. He is pages, as we discussed before the show.
We're working. Black Tie behind the glass and I are working on getting one George R.R. Martin on this show.
We've been saying this for 3
I know.
years.
I know.
Black Tie,
I feel like we're
great.
closer.
Black Tie has not made any
Let's
progress.
just say no. There was an email that went out yesterday from my Outlook that was to Judge R's people, or kind of.
Okay.
So we're as close as
Kind of.
possible.
No, we're making some
Kind of,
headway.
yeah.
We'll get him on Skype. He doesn't need to come here.
Right.
And keep
I
on
agree.
writing because I know he's busy.
Hopefully, the new mock draft that we have on NFL.com or it's NFL.com, as Hank will say.
What?
Well, you say NFL. Say NFL.com.
NFL.com.
There we go.
Black Tie.
I
Why?
emphasize that L?
Yeah.
Yeah, on game
The
there is a Game of Thrones, a draft of sorts, a ranking by our pal Patrick Crawley now
Very fun.
available
I enjoyed the read.
at NFL.com. Yes, putting all the Game of Thrones characters where they belong in the NFL.
I like Patrick came up with the first pick in the draft is Jon Snow, who is the ultimate. He's more of an injury risk than we just talked about Miles Jack. he's either your savior or he's dead.
Yep.
That's
Big,
yeah,
wide
boom
range of
bust.
outcomes.
Right.
Boomer
Boomer
bust prospect there.
Well, if he comes back, then he's the ultimate.
He's a
Iron
franchise.
Man.
He's a franchise
Right.
saver right there. Yeah.
Yeah, right. He's who you want. By the way, Black Tie, as we jump into this conversation on our rundown here, as you
It
can
says
see,
spoiler alert.
It says spoiler alert in red.
Yeah.
In
It's
red.
good to let
Everything
people
else
know.
is in black on this
What are we
page, but
spoiling?
What?
Possibly.
If you're not up to
people-
speed,
Some people, hey, I didn't
I don't-
start watching Game of Thrones until season 3. I binge watched seasons 1 and 2. You never know who's about to be on the bandwagon. Right? So just a heads
Well,
up.
and-
that's not my concern. We're talking about season 6 preview. I'm a spoiler alert. We're going to talk about things that have already happened.
Literally, probably 300 days ago, that's finished.
That's on them, Black Tie. That's not our responsibility to worry
Well,
about
now
their
we've
feelings.
bandied this about enough that if anybody hasn't caught up on the show, they've turned
Yeah.
the program off. Thankfully.
I got a
So-
bigger bone to pick, though, with this article. Great work by Curly, but crying out loud, we did the Marvel and DC mock draft for like 4 or 5 writers. Crowley's out here just hugging the rock. You have Gelhar who's read all the books. You have me who's watched every episode like 3 times. How about we get involved in this article, Patrick Crowley?
No, I think
Well,
Crowley
I
did a
helped.
great job.
I helped him out with it a little bit.
I
but
helped
also,
them out a bit, too.
Dave helped him out a bit. You don't. We didn't see you raising your hand, Black Tie, as usual. You're not normally the
what?
first guy with your hand up to help
Guys.
with something.
Well,
You were
that's
probably
that's
working on your jump
that's
shot.
That's usual work.
Right.
If we're talking Game of Thrones, if we want to talk Game of Thrones, we can talk Game
I
of
don't
Thrones.
know that you're not considered one of the top 10 experts
see,
on that in
that's-
this
see,
building.
that's
I
just-
mean, would you say
that's
that?
just-
Would you?
No, Dave, I
I didn't
was
even
saying-
know
This is
Black Tie
narrative.
Is
watched it.
Black Tie one of the top 10 in-house Game of Thrones
Yeah.
experts?
I would go top 5.
Absolutely.
I would put Alex Jarek, who's in the photo team, and Gelhar ahead of me, and Christian Glenn, because they all read the books.
You think you
I
have
call
a
him
better
next.
grasp of
Patrick,
what's
no,
happening
Patrick
than me?
Claybon is
By
ahead of you
fo-
too.
Right.
Well,
Patrick Claybon's
well, if-
read all the books as well.
Patrick Crawley, who we asked to write this.
No,
Dave and
not
I have
Crawley.
been discussing it on this show for
Not
many
you guys.
years.
Nope.
What?
I disagree.
You, Black
Okay.
Tie, have a better handle on what Game
I
of
have
Thrones
watched
is all
every
about.
episode 3 times, and you guys, we've had a conversation.
Fully for
and it's
you.
kinda-
You know,
it's kinda
people used to
elementary
call him
conversation.
Young Sansa.
I'm just saying. Just because I stay quiet behind the glass doesn't mean anything. We can talk Game of Thrones all day. We can
Well,
do it.
next week when we've watched the first episode, we'll get into
All right.
it. And if you're lucky, you might be invited. To.
I won't be in a rundown.
Black.
Spoiler alert.
I was
All
gonna say,
right,
if
so-
you do want a good theory episode, you get Claybon, myself, and Alex Strawik up here, and then we can dive deep into what's going to come and what we think.
Oh.
I mean, having read the books, but that's why I don't like it. The spoilers.
But so let me just to clarify where we are. The books have now been completed. There is no
for the most part, there are storylines from the books that have changed, and others that I believe are going to surface that haven't surfaced yet, that they're just waiting. So, but for the most part, the main narrative of the books, where most of the characters are, has been reached with the show.
Can I
So
commend
the show
Society?
is venturing into new territory.
Society deserves a pat on the back because the readers of the book did a great job, and I am on social media and everything else, and no one really spoiled any. Well, in the book, here's what happens. I did hear a couple of vague things. Don't get too close to the Red Viper. I got a little bit of that kind of stuff before he got his eyes poked out. Is that the way it went down in the book?
Yes, that was exactly the way it went, which was sad because I thought the guy I keep forgetting his name, the guy they had play Oberyn was just fantastic. And seeing him realize from the book, I was like, oh man, he's tremendous. I was like, I wish you weren't going to get your face smashed at the end of the season.
Yeah, his head. The mountain blew his head up.
But
Yeah,
I
really
think
did.
to the credit of the book readers, they know the creators. D.B. Weiss and David Benioff are huge fans of the books too, and before they even got the blessing of George R. R. Martin to do the show, they had to sit down with him, and he asked them all these questions about the books and what they thought was going to happen and things. So they had to prove their fan and nerd metal before they could even make the show.
Yep.
Don't just saying yep, Black Tie doesn't make you an authority
I
on
bet you guys
anything.
don't know the question that made George R. say, okay, you guys can do the show. What's the main question he asked them?
I know.
He
I don't
asked them, who are Jon Snow's parents? And then their answers, he was like, okay, you guys have my blessing. You can do the show.
That's interesting.
Yep.
All right.
But anyways, so they've done a great job, and I'm curious, and I know they know where the story is going from George. They've talked with him, so I am very curious to see what happens in this coming season.
Right.
How much?
Will you bother reading the books though?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I still enjoy the books. Right. They're a little over long. I think George could use an editor to be like, take out this 600 words about food and let's move on with the story, but they're still very good reads.
Has there been a major deviation in the TV show from the book?
Sansa is not married to Ramsay in the books like that. She's not with him. You know how she's kind of saddled with him at the end of that season? That did not happen in the books.
All right, let's get into it real quick. Bring everybody up to speed here. Handsome jump in as well. What do you think about Jon Snow? Last thing we saw, the last sight of the previous season was Jon Snow being stabbed to death. By
I don't
his
think he's
pals.
done. I think Jon Snow will be back.
But to what end? What do we want? We're going to root for a zombie guy? He's going to be like half
No, I
dead,
think- but-
staggering around, and he's our hero?
No. I don't think he. I think the Red Witch, whose magic so far has proved to be sort of hit or miss. I think she may be able to bring him back to life because he has that royal blood or whatever it is she's looking for.
What motivation does the Red Witch have to like
She
Jon
wants to
Snow?
attach herself to a winner. She's a little bit like Jeff Fisher in a way. She's like, I want to extend my reign here. How can I possibly?
I'm gonna trade
I
up
know.
and
I'll
get a
trade
new
up
one.
and get a new one.
That's
what's happening.
That's a great comparison.
Poor Stannis Baratheon. A year or so ago, Larry Fitzgerald. In fact, I talked to him about this at the Super Bowl. That's a name drop, and I don't bring it up just to name drop, but I do like to name drop. But also, Larry Fitzgerald apologized because he sat on this show and announced about a year and a half ago that he thought Stannis Baratheon was going to have this redeeming story turn and he was going to end up with the Throne of Thrones. And then we know that – and by the way, it looked good for him early on. It seemed like, Baratheon, Stannis has a heart. He's nice to his little scale girl, his little scale daughter, and then he allowed her to be burned at the cross.
That is one thing that I do enjoy about enjoy. It's kind of a weird, visceral reaction. But you read the books, you really never know. You think you know where it's going, and George is really good at throwing you curveballs. There have been a few times where reading the books I've actually wanted to physically throw them across the room. But that's when you know you're invested.
Who predicted? Go ahead. Jump to the end of the book that isn't written yet. Who's going to get the throne? Gelhar.
I would surmise that it's Daenerys or Jon Snow in some form or another.
No, it's not Daenerys because she's too much of a Christ figure in these books, and that I don't think they would do that. There's the element of the underdog. I know most of these people are royalty, but she's imbued with basically magic powers, and she has dragons. The book isn't going to end with the New York Yankees winning the World Series. That she has everything in her favor. She has a massive army of trained killers, and she has two dragons.
Yeah,
it ain't going to end that
She
way.
keeps taking her licks over there, though. Now, as we said before the show, she's separated from that entire said army. And she still has to cross over and then take over Westeros as well. So
you know what though? It's got to be a Stark, doesn't it? After all the bloodletting of that family, don't we have to redeem that family by having Sansa or Arya or somebody like that get the
could
throne?
be. I don't know. That's what's great about it. We have no idea.
Not to get too deep here, Dave, but in real life, in the real world, there's never a winner. The battle just keeps going.
Is that your prediction for
That's
the
my
show?
prediction. I don't believe there'll ever be a winner. I think the struggle continues forever and ever.
But in the underdog way, in the same
was
way
pretty
that
deep,
Lord of the
right?
That was
Rings,
good. I
it
like
was.
that.
But in Lord of the Rings, they give it to the hobbits, because that's supposed to. The
Hobbits came away.
They
with the W
physically are the underdogs, and so in the same way, Tyrion makes some sense.
Would be pretty great if he got on the throne, but I don't
Yeah.
know if it's going to happen.
I don't think so.
He might
either.
be the best ruler of all of them if he was on the throne.
Yes.
He's
Maybe.
smart. He's kind of he's merciful.
That's the better game. The who's going to get the throne is one thing. Who's going to be left standing? Because they can't all be dead.
Well,
I would
everyone
save
dies
one.
in the end, Dave. Not to get too deep on you.
Also true. Yeah, that's also true.
Don't
Black
know
Tie, go ahead. Tell us. Lay
Don't
it
know
on.
who's going to win. I do think Samuel Talley is going to play a big role in whatever happens.
Who?
Samuel Tarley?
Yeah.
Oh.
The debate kid.
I didn't know who he
This
was
is the
talking
expert.
about.
We
He
also
doesn't know
mispronounced
people's
his
names.
name.
Samuel.
He's such an
I just
expert.
I just said the R wrong because I'm Nigerian.
Well,
now.
you're sitting next to Jeff Talley, so
Right.
that's
Yeah.
probably why.
That's I
Probably
did
why.
get confused there.
Yeah, I got an
Corrected
accent,
Jeff
like a different
Talley.
accent sometimes. However,
Be
because
fun if Jeff Talley won.
Jeff Talley, by the
He's
way,
never
while
seen
we're
Game
having
of
this
Thrones.
conversation, is whispering in my ear, what a bunch of nerds, while he runs off every free second he has to go and watch 72-year-old Axl Rose
wheelchair.
huff and sweat through a set with GNR.
no, but he is going to play a key role because in like season 3 or season 4, there's a line that goes, "So you're like a wizard, huh?" I feel like that's going to come back and pay dividends in later seasons.
All right.
Thanks, young
Well,
Sansa.
we'll keep an eye on that one there, Black Tie. All right, it's time for Good Little or Can't Wait, and we'll each week. Maurice Jones-Drew, by the way, another diehard of Game
He
of
really
Thrones.
is. I want to get
wants
him
to
on
do-
the show.
Well, he wants to do a weekly. He
He's
review.
welcome to join us.
So yeah, we'll do that next.
But I'd like him
Tuesday.
to be in Game of Thrones, is what I mean.
Oh.
I would do anything to have MJD as a Game of Thrones character. Just a small bit, like he could be a White Walker. I'm pretty sure if we went to George R.R. and we say, hey, can you help us out with our pal Maurice? I bet he could make it happen.
All right.
I do think
Let's
it's
look
worth
into it.
trying to do. Like, I think Maurice would make a great White Walker.
Ooh, Ike Taylor, though. We could get Ike in there as a White Walker.
I could probably want some of the horns
They
and
can't
stuff too
speak,
that that other
though.
guy has.
That's a problem for Ike.
What do you mean?
Well, Ike would have to be quiet for long.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. That's interesting. All right, so let's move on now. It is time for the all-time draft of 2016, presented by McDonald's. Money Monopoly, all sorts of cash prizes. And otherwise, you go to McDonald's, you get the thing, you peel the sticker away, and there you shall find your prize. Next week in Chicago, 32 prizes, or 31, if I stand corrected, will be awarded in human form to NFL rosters. At the draft, we're doing the same thing here. We're just expanding the possibilities really exponentially, because instead of being able to choose from a pool of the current collegiate players, we are expanding it to all human beings for all of time, save the ones currently on NFL rosters. Like the Terminator teaches us, you can't be in two places at once. Beyond that, the rosters are as they currently exist in 2016. That means Josh Norman isn't on a team right now. However, he's not retired, so he's not eligible.
Okay.
The team needs remain the same as they are in 2016. And because we're evaluating these guys as prospects, we ask that you look at Jim Brown coming out of college not as one of the all-time great running backs of all time. Joe Namath out of Alabama leaves Tuscaloosa.
We're calling him
moves out
Sunset Joe, right?
Sunset Boulevard. Joe Namath moves into Jeff Fisher and presumably will be the starting quarterback from day one. Sorry, Case Keenum. Dan Marino from Pitt goes to the Jets. I like that fit there.
I hate it.
You don't like that. You don't like Danny
Don't
Marino
like
there,
him
and
in the
you think
Kelly
he's going to be
Green.
good and torment your Dolphins for
Yeah.
years to come, eh?
Yeah.
Jerry Rice went. Where did Jerry Rice? Oh, he went to the Detroit Lions. I really thought that the Lions would do well to go after the kid out of Georgia Tech, Calvin Johnson, because
He
they
went
just
to Vikings.
yeah, he did go to the Vikings, but it's a shame because Calvin Johnson just retired from the Lions, and they need to replace him with somebody. And I thought that kid at Georgia Tech would be a perfect fill-in for him, this Megatron kid from Tech. Troy Polamalu went to the Bengals. The Steelers took Ed Reed. And so we are up to pick number 26. And where are we, Black Tie, there?
We're at number 26.
Yeah, I just said that.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't have my
the
list. Who's
Seahawks
number
are-
26? I
Seahawks
forget.
are picking.
Oh, the Seahawks.
Seahawks,
I'm
of
sorry,
course.
see? Well, I don't have my list in front of me, so I
gotcha.
off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank here. Who's on the scene in Chicago?
Charles Davis in Chicago.
Oh, our pal Charles Davis also doing great work on Path to the Draft. Charles, what do the Seahawks need here?
With pick number 26, the Seattle Seahawks, who do pride themselves on being a complete team, running the ball on offense, but playing great defense, they've got a decision to make. Do they try and get better in the offensive line? Do they even look to snag a running back this high in the draft, even though they had a guy who gave them some production last season? That's a possibility. But I do know this. They love their defense. And you have to get after the quarterback. I don't care where you are in the NFL today. That's why I think they go to Virginia Tech and get a guy by the name of Bruce Smith. And frankly, I'm stunned he's lasted this long in the draft, but he's there for the Seattle Seahawks. And could you imagine what they will do with that guy, the former Hokie, who knows how to get to the quarterback and can play the run a little bit as well?
Alex Gelhar, let's start with you. I certainly we know that John Schneider and Pete Carroll like to go defense and beef that up as much as possible, but they obviously have some needs on offense. Where are they going?
I like the pick on defense getting Bruce Smith personally. I think their whole run of success has been predicated on getting after the quarterback and playing good secondary on the back end. So I think Bruce Smith's kind of a no-brainer there.
Handsome, how say you?
There's a hole at running back for them. And I think the guy who can run hard, really, imposes will on the opposition is a guy called Marshawn Lynch.
Ooh, out of Cal, right? Yeah, and Cal has a nice stable of running
Right.
backs that have succeeded in the NFL. I'm going to go down Texas way and say Earl Campbell would be a nice pick here. All right, let's get to it with the 26th pick. The Seattle with the 26th pick in the all-time draft of 2016, the Seattle Seahawks select from UCLA offensive tackle Jonathan Ogden.
Ooh.
I like, if this is what they're going to be, and a passing team, at least find that balance that we saw in the second half of 2015. This makes a lot of sense. Protect the franchise already. Russell Wilson, teams get a little bit loose with that. If you are the Packers with Aaron Rodgers or the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger, you can sort of ignore the offensive line because you've seen your guy be able to thrive in spite of that. So it goes with the Seahawks. But, with Russell Okung moving on, I like this move here. He's a giant, too. I don't know if you've ever seen Jonathan Ogden. At number 27, Charles Davis. Lay it on us. What do the Green Bay Packers need?
It's time for pick 27, and you'll hear some booing now because the hated Green Bay Packers are on the clock here in Chicago, and Bears fans don't like them mentioned no matter what. But frankly, for me, it's down to two positions for the Green Bay Packers at this point in the draft. A tight end who can make plays downfield. All right, if you're looking at maybe even a Mike Ditka at a pick, can you believe that? Imagine him showing up in a Green Bay Packers uniform, or maybe at a linebacker position because they need someone in the middle who can control things and patrol and maybe move some other guys back out on the edge where they deserve to be. Well, let's go ahead and make the pick then. Let's go down to Waco, Texas, because the pick I think they should make played there for the Baylor Bears, an absolutely maniacal effort guy, a guy who studies the game as well as anyone, and when you want people to hit, this guy will do that. Mike Singletary to the Green Bay Packers, playing linebacker. That's the choice I would make. Run the card up to the podium.
I've heard good things about this Singletary character. They say it's all in the eyes. You just look at him. You're a Packers guy, Gelhar.
I am.
I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you think they
I
should do?
would love the Singletary pick. They just signed Jared Cook, so I think he can help in the passing game. Aaron Rodgers lifts everybody else better, and they're trying to move Clay Matthews back outside.
Right.
They need a smart, physical, fast presence in the middle, and I think Singletary would bring all of that.
Handsome?
I don't know about Singletary. Can't win with him.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe you can't do it. I don't know. But the pick is in. The Green Bay Packers at number 27 select from Pitt tight end Mike Ditka.
Oh.
This is fascinating. I think he's going to do well. He grew up in the hard-boiled town of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. I think this will translate to the good people of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
He will certainly be a fan favorite.
Yeah. I think look out. I mean,
Could have a career in coaching after he retires, I'm told.
he's a savvy guy as well.
Savvy, smart guy.
All right, so there goes Mike Ditka to the Packers. At number 28, Charles Davis. What are we looking at here?
With pick number 28, it's time for the Kansas City Chiefs to go up there and make their selection. And right now, you've got to figure in their draft room, they're mulling over a whole lot of possibilities. Defensive line is a big-time spot for them. Charles Haley out of James Madison has been an intriguing guy that's really caught the eye of a whole bunch of people, wondering when he's going to go in this draft because they see a unique blend of playmaking abilities from this guy. But I know the Chiefs, they like to throw the ball around a little bit. They love offense. If I'm them, I find one more receiver and say we've got to be able to stretch the field and get deep. I'm going to Florida A&M University where Jake Gaither holds reign, and he always says he wants his players agile, mobile, hostile, and maybe a dash of speed. How about Bob Hayes, wide receiver, a running back in college? We're converting him and putting him out wide for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Not familiar with the names that he's throwing around there,
No.
but that's what happens at the back end of the first round. The James, those highlights, though, of Charles Haley from
Pretty
James
good.
Madison.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
interesting.
pretty good.
Yeah, I liked seeing that. That was
Yep.
that was a lot of fun. Yellow on yellow. I encourage you, Nate Demand, go check it out on YouTube or NFL.com/podcast. Handsome, what do you think they should do?
I think a running back could be a good one for them here. Jamal Charles coming off an injury, maybe look to the future. Emmitt Smith
Emmett's from Florida.
from Florida
Yeah,
impressed me a lot. I think he's a guy that could.
feels like a reach. To
You know, they just re-upped their other backs in that backfield with Charkandrick West.
Never have
Spencer
too
Ware,
many.
So they've got depth. I would rather see him get help in the passing game.
Black Tie, lay it on me. You have to announce the pick from back there, I'm afraid.
All right. With the 20th overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Bruce Smith.
Oh, they get Bruce Smith. All right,
that's
there they
exciting.
go.
It's a good
That's a
pick.
good pick there because with Justin Houston presumably gone for all of 2016, this is a team ready to make hay in the AFC. I feel like they can really make a deep run. In fact, we're hearing talk from some of their players that they're going to cut it loose this year. They're going to open it up a little bit. Travis Kelce, I believe, said that they're gonna take more risks in 2016. They just have to maintain the high level that defense has played at. I think that.
And pick number 29, the Arizona Cardinals feel like they
What
have a
just
pretty
happened there?
stacked team, but there are always still a few spots to fill in. I mean, let's think about the tight end position because that's often a quarterback's best friend. And Ozzie Newsome out of Alabama, or a Tony Gonzalez out of Cal. They both make a whole lot of sense. But there's also a prevailing thought that preparing for the next quarterback is something that Arizona ought to do. Bob Waterfield comes to mind. Norm Van Brocklin out of Oregon comes to mind. Those are guys that can fling the ball deep, and that's something that Bruce Arians loves to do, to press the ball downfield and make those kind of big-time plays. But I tell you, the big guy, the guy that people aren't talking about who's going to be an absolute winner in this league, in my opinion, automatic Otto Graham out of Northwestern should be the selection for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, Bruce Arians, I'm in the same headspace, but I'm going to throw out another name. A guy who really throws a terrific deep ball is Jamarcus Russell out of LSU. He might do well in the valley there, Valley of the Sun. Handsome, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's two ways you go. You either look for the quarterback to replace Carson Palmer, or you say we've got 2-3 more years. We're right on the brink. Let's get him some weapons. I like Tony Gonzalez at Cal.
I would love the Tony Gonzalez pick, personally. They've got 3 great wide receivers there already. Get another element over the middle and just light up the scoreboard.
Right.
Well, with the 29th pick in the all-time draft of 2016, the Arizona Cardinals select, wow, how about this one? From San Diego State, running back Marshall Faulk. They were very excited about David Johnson.
He's going to be angry.
But maybe they liked the Chris Johnson element before he got hurt in 2015. This guy is super fast. I don't know how well he's going to run between the tackles, but at the very least, he's going to be a nice third down option for it. All right, let's get to the 30th pick there. Congratulations to that Aztec, Marshall Faulk. And at number 30, let's get to it, Carolina Panthers. Big shakeup, obviously, without Josh Norman there. Where should they go, Charles Davis?
At pick number 30, the Carolina Panthers, they know how to have some success now. They want to be a black and blue type of a team on both sides of the ball. They want to rock them. They want to sock them. They want to pound it. And what they need is another running back. So I'm not even going to talk about other positions because to me, that's what they have to have. That's what they should go get. A Tony Dorsett would be absolutely fantastic out of Pitt. But let's go ahead and just throw all the rest of the names out. Let's go to one guy, the Tyler Rose out of Texas, Earl Campbell. Because if you're going to rumble, if you're going to go in there and go chest to chest with people, Earl Campbell provides all of that. And by the way, at his size, he'll absolutely run over someone and then run away from everyone else. Earl Campbell from Texas, hand in the card and make yourself very happy if you're a Carolina Panthers fan.
I like that a lot. Some people are projecting him. You mentioned the name Marshawn Lynch out of Cal. I think this guy is maybe even a better version of that, and he really suits that identity of Carolina. Earl Campbell would be a great pick there for him.
Yeah, maybe. You look back to the Super Bowl, I think it was tackle was really where they struggled. Those guys were dominated at the line of scrimmage. I think possibly looking in that area, a guy maybe a John Hanna. Or an Art Shell. I think there are still some great tackles on the board.
Personally, I was going to say Earl Campbell before Charles even mentioned it because if I'm a defender and I'm staring at a Cam Newton, Earl Campbell read option play coming at me, that is something I don't want to be in the middle of.
Yeah, and then again, you wonder now with the shakeup, do they go corner? Let's see who it is. At pick number 30 in the all-time draft of 2016, the Carolina Panthers select from Georgia cornerback Champ Bailey.
Oh.
All of a sudden, this talk of is he a system guy, is he a shutdown corner? Champ projects to be, in fact, a true shutdown corner in a league that doesn't have many of them. Mm-hmm. Or if you listen to LaDainian Tomlinson, who has good things to say about a kid out of TCU named LaDainian Tomlinson.
I bet he does.
But analyst at the NFL network here, LaDainian Tomlinson, says there are no shutdown corners. Champ Bailey out of Georgia threatens to expose that as untrue in 2016. We'll see. That's a fun one there. We're wrapping it up today, Black Tie.
31st pick is up next. We got two more picks.
All right. So at pick number 31, let's get to it then. The Denver Broncos, world
Wait,
champions.
these guys won the Super Bowl and they've got the 31st pick. Who has the 32nd?
I couldn't help it. I'm a generous soul. I didn't want the Patriots to miss out on the fun. They're going to be. But let's get to Charles Davis. What do the Broncos need?
With selection number 31, the Denver Broncos are feeling awfully good about themselves, and everyone is immediately pointing to the quarterback position. Who do you go and get? I cannot believe that this guy from Notre Dame is still sitting out there, and that's Joe Montana. Great feet, good decision maker, very accurate thrower. But I know this. They won their championship on defense. So can you bring back a guy who knows how to hit people upside the head, whether it's in the rules or not, Deacon Jones? That's who I would go get because he's going to be an absolute force, a wrecking crew. And that's how they won before, and they'll go back to the same formula. Deacon Jones, defensive end, would be the pick if it were up to me.
What a coup that would be, that for all of these players available, 2 of them, if they do in fact go Deacon Jones, 2 of those players would come from Mississippi Valley State. We already saw Jerry Rice from the same school go to the Lions earlier. Handsome.
I mean, like Deacon Jones seems like a nice pick, but if you've got Mark Sanchez leading that team, I really don't think it matters who you've got on defense.
I don't. But who is this Joe? Have you ever seen
Montana
Joe
kid.
Montana?
No,
He's a
crazy.
little guy. He's not.
That's a huge reach.
Somebody's going to break him in day 1 in camp, and I don't even think he has much of an arm.
I'd rather them look at another guy from a smaller school, a bigger guy with a big arm, Brett Favre, down in Mississippi.
Yeah, that Southern Miss kid. Yeah,
He's got a cannon. You put
He's
that
got
up.
a
You put that up in the thin air at Mile High Stadium.
He's got
Demarius Thomas.
swagger. Yeah, I like him. Yeah,
like
let's
that.
maybe that the Denver Broncos at pick number 31. Elway delivers the card. It is from Notre Dame quarterback Joe Montana.
Good call, Charles Davis.
That's
Good.
a reach.
Well,
That's a
I mean, I
reach.
guess I don't. Charles Davis must know something.
Right.
Because this is, well, listen, who am I? Am I an expert? I guess not, because this one just seems ludicrous.
Not
to me.
going back to the Super Bowl anytime
Good,
soon.
good luck. The Denver Broncos. This is the same team, mind you, that selected in the first round a generation ago Tommy Maddox out of UCLA. How'd that one work out? We'll see how this one does, too. I think Broncos fans are going to be missing Jake Plummer by the end of 2016 when they get a load of this guy. And at pick number 32, the Patriots may not have a pick in the real draft next week, but we couldn't help ourselves. Charles Davis, who should the Pats go out and get?
Now, this has to be special for everyone here because we actually have a 32nd pick here in the first round. Our commissioner has directed us to tell you that the New England Patriots are getting a selection in the first round. And every year we talk about the Patriots needing a wide receiver, and somehow they fashion together tremendous offense without actually going and getting that receiver. But Steve Largent, could you imagine going to Tulsa and getting him and putting him into the lineup and making people a whole lot happier throwing the ball downfield? But if the Patriots are true to who they are, they do like to control the ball on the ground, don't they? And there's a guy out of Kansas, a little bit of a different guy, but boy, can he tote the rock. And his name is John Riggins. I would go get him. Control the football with Riggo, pounding it downfield. I think the Patriots fans would be very happy with that formula, maybe even hoist up another Lombardi trophy.
I like that pick. What the film I've seen on this Riggins does seem like he would be a good fit
Right.
there. Another Kansas guy, though, would be Gale Sayers. He's more flash and dash. Handsome, where are you looking?
I think Largent fits what Belichick likes to do with receivers. Get an undersized guy and make him work. I'm very surprised.
Got a high motor?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm
Has
saying.
he got surprising
He's
speed?
got surprising speed. He might be a slot guy.
Gritty player.
Gritty,
Brings his lunch
gritty.
pail to work.
Is he a Wes Welker type?
He's a Wes Welker type, a Julian Edelman. The other guy I'm surprised hasn't been mentioned at all, if we're looking at running back, is Texas's Ricky Williams. I think that guy's going to be great.
Now, what about in terms of wide receivers? Yes, Largent fits the mold of what they like to do, but what about getting somebody that gives them another element, like the kid out of Marshall, Randy Moss? Can run and jump out of the building. Gives them an element they don't have. You put him outside,
Never
you
would
get all
work.
those
I
guys
don't
in the
think
middle.
it would work in New England.
No?
I can't see him.
Belichick and
Ah.
Randy and this Randy Moss
Brady
is
and him
apparently-
I don't know. I think they might be able to ones to mold him and turn him into something great.
Isn't he a me guy, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know who else? From Clemson, Fridge Perry. They still have some room.
I could go for that.
Yeah, that could be a good one, too. All right, with the 32nd and final pick of the all-time draft of 2016, the New England Patriots select – who did they select, Black Tie?
They selected wide receiver Steve Largent.
They go Steve
Ah, they
Largent.
did.
They do
Gritty
go
kid.
ahead and do it. Steve Largent, yes. That's know who you are, I guess.
Right.
And this is what the Patriots are. Steve Largent. Have I ever heard of him? No. Is that going to stop him from catching probably 110 passes a year?
No.
From Tom Brady?
Certainly
No,
not.
Indeed. No, indeed. So congratulations to all 32 teams. I like those old Tulsa uniforms.
Those are
Look
sharp.
those up on YouTube
The
as well.
golden rainbows.
I
golden
said it before.
hurricanes.
My favorite thing about the all-time draft is the old highlights of these guys in college. These, as it turns out, it's been a ruse on you guys the whole time.
What?
These guys are actual Hall of Famers in the NFL.
What?
Most everybody selected
Really?
here. But,
I had never heard of any of them.
there you have the all-time draft of 2016 presented by McDonald's Money Monopoly. Go play that game while you wait to see who your favorite team actually selects in Chicago next week. And Alex Gelhar, tremendous time.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy Game of Thrones.
I shall.
Enjoy NBA playoffs. You watching NBA or NHL playoffs?
I'm trying to take in as much as possible, but there's a lot going on right now.
Handsome, you're doing neither?
I mean, not until the NBA playoffs really get exciting in the last 2 minutes of the
You're
final
focused
game.
in on your brew crew from
That's
Milwaukee.
right. Yeah.
Oh, not really yet. They're not great either, so.
All right. So we will talk to you early next week. Then we're going to jump a plane. We're going to head to Chicago, and we're going to do a show from out there, from the site of the draft with Ike and Maurice and Matt Money Smith and Handsome Hank.
Oh,
and
thanks.
we'll do all
I'll
sorts
join in.
of good times there. Make sure you check out the NFL Fantasy Live podcast available on iTunes and NFL.com/podcasts. And as it happens, that's where all the podcasts are, including this one. Make sure you check them all out. We'll talk to you early next week. In the meantime, thanks so much, football fans. It's been a thin slice of heaven.